When my son and I returned from our trip, the house was empty. My sister stepped out, smiling. "This is my house now. I got married, so it's only fair." I called my parents, but my mother sighs. "A single mother doesn't need a house this big." My son clung to my clothes crying. I said nothing and walked away, but soon after my sister's smile vanished. In the living room where the dim twilight shone through the window, Megan Williams was reading through English essays submitted by her students. While occasionally making notes with a red pen, she smiled at her son's laughter coming from the next room. "Mom, look! Darth Vader is saving Luke." 6-year-old Aiden was surrounded by Star Wars figurines scattered on the floor, creating stories while moving them with his small hands. His imagination knew no bounds. Megan wrote the final evaluation on the essay and knelt beside her son. "Aiden, it's almost dinner time. Could you please clean up?" She gently stroked her son's golden hair. Aiden was once the only bond between her and her ex-husband Jason. The divorce 2 years ago was far from the life Megan had imagined, but this adorable boy's smile was the only thing that gave her the strength to move forward. Megan worked as an English teacher at the local Lincoln High School. A teacher's salary was never luxurious, but as a single mother, she did the best she could. She herself hadn't grown up in a wealthy household. Her father Thomas worked as a factory worker, and her mother Betty worked part-time as a receptionist to raise Megan and her sister Vanessa. Megan had earned a scholarship to attend the state university and obtained a degree in education. It was the fruit of her own efforts. While stirring pasta sauce in the kitchen, Megan's cell phone rang. Her sister Vanessa's picture appeared on the screen. "Hey, Megan. How are you?" Vanessa's cheerful voice resonated from the phone. Megan smiled. "I'm just preparing dinner. I helped Aiden with his homework, and I need to prepare for tomorrow's class soon." "You're always so busy," Vanessa said with a hint of sarcasm. "I'm going to dinner with Marcus. You know, that investment advisor I mentioned before. Just yesterday, he took me to the most expensive restaurant in town." Megan nodded with a smile. Vanessa worked as a beautician at a local upscale salon. She always sought a better life and dreamed of finding the right man to change her life. "That's lovely," Megan replied sincerely. "How is he doing?" "Wonderful. He talks a lot about our future. I can't believe I've met such a wonderful person." After the conversation ended, Megan sighed. As sisters, they loved each other, but there was always a subtle tension between them. Vanessa thought Megan was too practical, while Megan felt Vanessa was turning a blind eye to reality. Their parents had always spoiled Vanessa. She was the youngest in the family and knew how to charm people with her radiant smile and sociable personality. After dinner, while bathing Aiden, Megan's thoughts turned to her grandmother Elizabeth, who had passed away 6 months ago. Elizabeth had loved both Megan and Vanessa equally but had a special fondness for Megan's independent spirit and her unconditional love for Aiden. After Elizabeth's funeral, something surprising happened that shocked the whole family. Her spacious suburban house was left to Megan. When the executor read the will, a heavy silence fell over the room. "To my granddaughter Megan Williams, I leave my house on Mountain View Drive and all its furnishings. She needs a stable residence as a single mother and deserves a safe place to raise Aiden." At that moment, the color drained from Vanessa's face, and her parents wore expressions of confusion. Megan herself couldn't believe it. She had cared for her grandmother in her final days and visited her frequently but hadn't expected such a large inheritance. For the next few weeks, there was a chill in the family atmosphere. Vanessa was clearly jealous, and her parents voiced complaints that it wasn't fair. But in the end, they had to respect Elizabeth's wishes. Megan and Aiden moved into the new house a month later. Surrounded by mementos Elizabeth had collected over decades, this house with a spacious garden and bright rooms felt like heaven to them. Aiden had his own room for the first time, and Megan could focus on her career as a teacher without worrying about rent. After Aiden got into bed and Megan gave him a goodnight kiss, he asked in a small voice, "Mom, is Grandma watching us from heaven?" Megan smiled gently. "Yes, I'm sure she is. Grandma is always watching over us." "I miss Grandma." Aiden blinked sleepily. "I do too. But we have Grandma's precious house, don't we? Here, we'll cherish her memories." As Megan left Aiden's room, she glanced at the family photos hanging on the wide hallway walls. Elizabeth's gentle smile was there. "Thank you, Grandma," she whispered quietly. "I'll treasure your gift." Looking at the night sky through the large window in the living room, Megan felt hope for a new beginning. "Mom, how many more days until we go?" Aiden asked while stirring his breakfast cereal. His blue eyes were shining with anticipation. Megan smiled and pointed to the calendar. 3 more days. We'll leave Friday morning, and then our 2-week adventure begins. Will I get to meet Mickey Mouse? Or the Star Wars people? Of course, Aiden. At Disneyland, all dreams come true. Megan gently stroked her son's hair. This Disneyland trip during spring break was something they had planned and saved for over many months. It would be Aiden's first long-distance trip and a precious opportunity for Megan to refresh away from daily life. The doorbell rang, and Vanessa entered. She was glowing more than usual. "Good morning, my adorable nephew." She hugged Aiden. "You're going to Disneyland, aren't you? I'm so jealous." "Auntie, I'm going to get a lightsaber," Aiden exclaimed excitedly. Vanessa smiled and turned to Megan. "You wanted to ask me something, right?" Megan took a list out of the refrigerator. "Yes. Since no one will be home, could you water the plants twice a week? Also, please check the mail and send me photos if there's anything important." "Of course, sis." "Leave it to me," Vanessa beamed. "So, don't you want to hear about me?" "About Marcus?" Megan smiled. "Please, tell me." "Well, he took me to this high-end jewelry shop downtown the other day." Vanessa showed her left hand. There was no ring, but her eyes were full of expectation. "He hasn't proposed yet, but I think it's coming soon. His investment business is at a major turning point right now. I think we'll be really happy together." Megan felt a bit uneasy about Vanessa's enthusiasm. She had only met Marcus Johnson a few times but felt something off about his flashy way of talking and constant discussion of big deals. However, she didn't want to dampen her sister's joy. "As long as you're happy. Just don't rush into things." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Here we go again. You're always too cautious, sis." Sometimes in life, there are moments when you just have to take the plunge. 2 days later, Megan was doing the final packing. Aiden was stuffing his favorite toys into his backpack, too excited to sleep. "Aiden, if you don't sleep properly, you won't have energy to start our trip tomorrow," Megan gently advised. "But Mom, I'm so excited." Megan hugged her son. "I am too. This will be our special adventure." The next morning, before the taxi arrived, Megan checked the entire house. Were all windows closed? Lights off? Unnecessary appliances unplugged? This was their first long absence from the house inherited from her grandmother. She had given Vanessa a list of emergency contacts and a spare key. "Let's go, Aiden. Our adventure begins." Megan took her son's hand and got into the taxi. The 2 weeks in California felt like a dream. Every time she saw the pure joy on Aiden's face, Megan felt that all the time and money spent on this trip were worth it. They rode famous attractions at Disneyland, took photos with characters, and were amazed by the night parade. Aiden got his promised lightsaber and proudly swung it around. But all wonderful experiences must come to an end. Before boarding the return flight, Megan sent a text message to Vanessa. "We'll be back this evening. How's the house?" Vanessa's reply was brief. "Everything's fine. Travel safely." In the taxi from the airport to home, Aiden was tired and sleeping in his mother's arms. Megan gazed out the window, looking forward to sleeping in her own bed. When the taxi stopped in front of the house, Megan felt something was off. In the twilight, the house looked different. The curtains had changed. She frowned and gently woke Aiden. "Wake up, Aiden. We're home." As she headed towards the entrance with her luggage, her key didn't work in the lock. Confused, she tried again, when suddenly the door opened. But Megan wasn't the one who had opened it. A strange man stood before her. "Who are you?" he asked suspiciously. "I'm Megan Williams. This is my house," she replied, unsettled. The man looked confused and said, "No, this is our house." Then he called over his shoulder, "Vanessa, someone's here." Megan's heart nearly stopped. Her sister slowly appeared. Vanessa was wearing what looked like an expensive dress with perfect makeup. A smile spread across her face. "Welcome back, Megan." "Surprised? This is my new life." Megan tightened her grip on Aiden's hand. "What do you mean?" "Vanessa, this house was left to me by Grandma. Why don't you come in?" Vanessa stood aside and opened the door wide. Megan entered with Aiden and stood in shock. The house she knew was gone. Grandmother's furniture had disappeared, replaced by sophisticated modern pieces. Photos she didn't recognize adorned the walls, and the once warm atmosphere had turned cold and rigid. "Why did you do this?" Megan's voice trembled. "I married Marcus." Vanessa raised her left hand, showing a large diamond ring. "A lovely home is essential for our new life together. It's more suitable for newlyweds like us to live in a spacious house than a single mother, don't you think? But legally, this is my house. In Grandma's will." "Mom and Dad agree with us," Vanessa interrupted. "They attended our wedding. We had it while you were away." Megan felt dizzy. "Wedding? When? Why didn't you tell me?" "It was sudden. Marcus had this business opportunity." Vanessa shrugged deliberately. "Besides, you were on vacation." Aiden clutched at Megan's clothes and asked in a small voice, "Mom, where are our rooms?" Megan took out her shaking phone. "I'm calling our parents." The phone rang several times before her mother, Betty, answered. "Megan, you're back from your trip?" "Mom, I came home to find Vanessa and her husband living here." "What's going on?" A long sigh came from the other end of the phone. "Megan, please understand, a single mother doesn't need such a big house. Vanessa and Marcus might have children in the future." But this house was left to me by Grandma. It's legally my property. We shouldn't be fighting like this within the family. You're still young. A small apartment is enough for you. Vanessa and Marcus are starting a new family." Megan was speechless. The feeling of betrayal by her own family overwhelmed her. Aiden gripped her clothes even tighter and began to cry. "Mom, I want to go back to Grandma's house." His voice was filled with sadness. Megan took a deep breath. She didn't want to lose her composure in front of her son. "All right," she said quietly. She took Aiden's hand and turned back to Vanessa and Marcus. "We'll stay at a friend's house tonight." But this isn't over. She headed towards the door with Aiden, turning back one last time. Vanessa's face wore a triumphant smile, but there was something uncertain in her eyes. Megan said nothing more and left the house with her son. In the taxi, fighting back tears, she called her best friend Sarah. "Sarah, can we stay with you tonight? It's a long story." After spending the night at Sarah's apartment, Megan called a law firm first thing in the morning. Anderson Law Firm had handled her grandmother's will. After quickly explaining the situation, she was able to arrange a meeting for that afternoon. "Thank you, Sarah," Megan said while clearing the breakfast dishes, "for letting us stay so suddenly." Sarah shrugged. "What are you talking about? You'd do the same for me." After checking that Aiden was watching TV in the living room, she lowered her voice. "So, what's your plan?" "I'm going to take legal action. Grandma's house should formally be in my name. I'll confirm it with the lawyer today." "I can't believe Vanessa would do this." Sarah shook her head. "Why would she do such a thing?" Megan sighed. "She's always chosen the easy path. But this time, she's gone too far." That afternoon, after dropping Aiden off at school, Megan headed to Attorney James Anderson's office. As she rode the elevator in the building, her heart ached at having to legally fight her own family. Attorney Anderson warmly welcomed her. "Please have a seat. Tell me the details of your situation." Megan explained everything. The lawyer listened attentively, occasionally taking notes. "Let me clarify the legal situation first," he said. "Elizabeth Williams' will is very clear. The house on Mountain View Drive and its contents were transferred to you. The property registration has been completed. Legally, the house is yours. But my sister and parents, regardless of what they think, the legal facts remain unchanged," Mr. Anderson said gently. "Family matters are difficult, but in terms of rights, it's clear. Your sister and her husband are in a state of unlawful occupation. What should I do next? We'll send a formal eviction notice. Legally, they will be given time to respond. If they don't comply, we'll have to apply for a court order." After leaving the office, Megan was filled with mixed emotions. While it was confirmed that she was legally right, she was anxious about the deepening rift with her family. That evening, when she picked up Aiden from school, he was unusually quiet. "What's wrong, Aiden?" Megan asked. "I told my friends at school about our house," Aiden said in a small voice, "but no one believed me. That auntie stole our house." Megan hugged her son. "Don't worry. We'll definitely get our house back. It might take time, but we will." A week later, a formal notice from Attorney Anderson was sent to Vanessa, Marcus, and her parents. It clearly demanded that they vacate the house within 2 weeks. The reaction was swift. Angry phone calls from her parents rang, accusing Megan of betraying the family. "How could you do this?" Her mother Betty's voice trembled. "Vanessa is crying. Do you intend to ruin their newlywed life?" "Mom, they occupied my house without permission. They're the ones who threw me and Aiden out. Elizabeth wouldn't have wanted this. Family fighting like this." "Yes, that's why she clearly left the house to me," Megan replied quietly. After hanging up, Megan felt exhausted. However, with the lawyer's advice, she was determined to proceed with legal action. A few days later, while Megan was teaching at school, she received a call from an unknown number. When she called back during her break, she heard an unexpected voice. "Is this Megan Williams?" The woman's voice sounded tense. "I'm Charlotte Baker. I used to date Marcus Johnson." Megan listened carefully, though surprised. "I learned from the news that your sister is now married to him," Charlotte continued. "I felt I had to warn you. Marcus is a con artist. He also scammed me out of a lot of money. All his investment talk is a lie." Anxiety spread in Megan's chest. "What do you mean?" "His method is always the same. He approaches wealthy women, or women with assets, gains their trust with fake investment stories, and eventually takes everything." After the conversation, Megan immediately began researching online. Searching for Marcus Johnson fraud yielded several hits. 3 years ago, he had been arrested in another state on fraud charges but was released due to insufficient evidence. Mixed with fear and anger, Megan felt she should warn her sister, but remembering their last conversation, she doubted Vanessa would listen. Gathering her courage, Megan called Vanessa, but as expected, the conversation proved difficult. "Are your delusions starting again?" Vanessa said coldly. "You're just jealous. Marcus has promised me a wonderful future. This house is just the first step." "Vanessa, look into his past. There are fraud charges. Enough, Vanessa shouted. You always try to ruin my happiness. Marcus and I love each other. You wouldn't understand, having never been loved by anyone. Megan gasped at those words. That's cruel, Vanessa. It's the truth. You've always done things on your own. Always looked down on me. Now it's my turn. Vanessa hung up. That night, Megan couldn't sleep. Her sister's words had hurt her, but she feared something bad might happen to her sister even more. However, she needed to focus on Aiden now. Reclaiming their house and rebuilding a stable life was the priority. The next morning, Megan contacted Attorney Anderson and shared the information about Marcus. The lawyer listened with a serious expression and advised consulting the police as well. Unfortunately, civil property rights issues and criminal fraud issues are separate, he explained. But this information might be useful in the future. As the 2-week deadline approached, Megan was tense. She didn't think Vanessa and Marcus would vacate voluntarily. Just as she was preparing to proceed with legal forced eviction, she received an unexpected call. Megan. Vanessa's voice was shaking. She sounded like she was crying. Marcus is gone, with all the money. Vanessa, calm down. What happened? Megan pressed the phone to her ear. Marcus, he's gone. Vanessa's voice trembled. Yesterday, he said he was going on a business trip. When I woke up this morning, all his luggage was gone. Megan felt her chest tighten. I'm coming right over. After leaving Aiden with Sarah, Megan rushed to her grandmother's house. When she reached the entrance, the door was slightly open. Inside, she was shocked. The house looked like a hurricane had passed through. Much of the furniture was gone, and what remained showed signs of rough handling. There were holes in the walls, and broken vase fragments and scattered papers littered the floor. In the living room, Vanessa sat curled up in a small ball. Her face was swollen with tears, her makeup smeared. As Megan entered the room, she slowly raised her face. I can't believe it. I thought he loved me. Vanessa's voice trembled. Megan sat next to her sister and put her arm around her shoulders. Tell me what happened. Everything. Vanessa took out her cell phone with shaking hands and opened her banking app. My accounts, all empty. Credit cards maxed out. She continued through tears. Marcus took out loans in my name, using this house as collateral. Megan was speechless. Marcus was a specialist in real estate fraud. He had probably rushed the marriage just to take out loans in Vanessa's name. Have you contacted the police? Megan asked. Vanessa shook her head. Too embarrassed? Everyone will laugh at me. This is a crime, Vanessa. You're not the one who should be ashamed. Megan stood up and walked around the house. How much debt is there? Over $500,000. Vanessa answered in a hoarse voice. He said it was real estate investment. I never questioned it. The next few hours passed in confusion. Megan contacted the police and filed a fraud report. She also explained the situation to Attorney Anderson and confirmed the legal status of the house. Looking at the marriage documents for Marcus and Vanessa, it became clear they were forged. The actual marriage had not been legally registered. According to the lawyer, the ownership of the house hasn't changed, so that's a relief, Megan told Vanessa. But the loans taken out in your name are a problem. Vanessa covered her face with her hands. What should I do? First, cooperate with the police investigation. Provide all the information to help find Marcus, Megan said gently. And regarding the loans, we'll consult with the lawyer to figure out a strategy. That evening, Megan returned to Sarah's house to pick up Aiden. Her son immediately ran to her when he saw her face. Mom, can we go back to our house? His eyes were full of hope. Megan embraced her son. Yes, Aiden. But we still need to clean up a bit. That night, after Aiden had fallen asleep at Sarah's house, Megan read a message she had received from her sister. Sis, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I betrayed the family. Now I've lost everything. Megan's heart was filled with complex emotions, anger, sympathy, and a deep sadness for her family. But above all, she had to restore a stable home for Aiden. The next day, Megan and Aiden returned to their grandmother's house. Vanessa had moved to a friend's house. The house was still in disarray, but the two began cleaning up little by little. Mom, why did Auntie do this? Aiden asked while picking up a broken picture frame. Megan chose her words carefully. Auntie made a wrong choice, but she was also deceived. But Auntie took our house, right? Yes, that was wrong. But everyone makes mistakes. Megan stroked her son's head. What's important is what you do afterward. The police investigation was progressing, but finding Marcus wasn't easy. It was discovered that he had been using multiple aliases and operating across states. However, a week later, unexpected news came in. Marcus Johnson, also known as David Clark, has been arrested in the neighboring state. A police officer informed Megan over the phone. He was part of an organized fraud group. There are similar victims in other states as well. Further investigation revealed they had been targeting women from wealthy families, especially those who had inherited property. Vanessa's case was typical. Vanessa agreed to cooperate as a witness and began to face her mistakes. 2 weeks after the arrest, she visited Megan's house. Her face was thinner than before, and her glamour had disappeared. "May I come in?" she asked hesitantly. Megan opened the door wide. "Please do." Sitting in the living room, Vanessa exhaled deeply. "First, let me apologize. I was the worst sister. Taking the house from you and Aiden. Why did you do such a thing?" Megan asked quietly. Vanessa's eyes welled with tears. "I've always been jealous of you. You were always strong and independent. I always chose the easy path." She choked on her words. "And when Grandma left you the house, I felt it was unfair. When I met Marcus, and he treated me special, I thought I could have everything. But to betray your family? I was foolish." Vanessa covered her face with her hands. "Marcus saw my weakness and exploited it. He kept telling me that what you had rightfully belonged to me. I wanted to believe it." Silence spread between them. Outside, they could hear Aiden playing in the garden. "What should I do now?" Vanessa asked in a small voice. Megan thought for a moment. Forgiving her sister wasn't easy, but she too had been a victim. "First, apologize to Aiden," she said. "He's confused." Vanessa nodded. "What else?" "Regarding your debt, I've spoken with the lawyer. With Marcus's group arrested, some assets have been frozen, and restitution to victims is being considered," Megan continued. "But there's no guarantee the full amount will be returned." "I understand," Vanessa smiled weakly. "From now on, I'll stand on my own feet." Megan exhaled deeply. "Why don't we live together in this house?" she suggested. "But there are conditions. Pay rent, work to repay your debt, and most importantly, sincerely apologize to Aiden." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Really? You'll forgive me?" "It will take time to forgive completely," Megan answered honestly. "But you're my sister. Family." Tears flowed from Vanessa's eyes. "Thank you. I couldn't be more blessed." That evening, Vanessa apologized to Aiden. At first, he avoided her, but as she sincerely apologized and promised never to betray him again, he gradually began to open his heart. Relationships with their parents also slowly mended, especially their father Thomas, who acknowledged his mistake and apologized to Megan. However, their mother Betty still didn't fully condemn Vanessa's actions, continuing to insist that she was also a victim. Megan accepted this while learning to set healthy boundaries with her parents. The house gradually regained its former warmth. New furniture was added, holes in the walls were repaired, and grandmother's photos were once again displayed. Vanessa began to take her job as a beautician seriously and gradually started repaying her debt. She also took on some household chores and helped prepare dinner when Aiden returned from school. One night, after Aiden had gone to bed, Megan and Vanessa were chatting in the living room over tea. "Sis," Vanessa said quietly, "that day, when you left the house, why didn't you say anything?" Megan gazed at the night sky outside the window. "To protect Aiden. I didn't want to fight in front of him." She smiled. "And I knew legally I was right. It might take time, but I believed I would definitely get it back." Vanessa nodded. "You're always so strong." "Strength sometimes lies in knowing when to walk away," Megan replied. "But it's equally important to come back to protect what's precious." The two continued drinking their tea in silence. The family's wounds were healing, but traces still remained. However, Megan knew that with time, love, and mutual respect, this house would once again become their sanctuary. "Aiden, hurry up. We'll be late." Megan's voice echoed up the staircase. "I'm ready, Mom." 7-year-old Aiden came running down the stairs with his new backpack. His eyes were shining even brighter than a year ago. Megan smiled as she fixed her son's hair. "Nervous about the first day of the new school year?" "Nope. I'm in 3rd grade now. I'm big." Aiden puffed out his chest. In the kitchen, Vanessa was cleaning up after breakfast. Her appearance had changed too. Her flashy fashion had become more modest, and her expression carried a calmness that wasn't there before. "Good morning, Aiden." She hugged her nephew. "I'll have a special treat ready when you get back from school." A year had passed. Grandmother's house had once again become a warm home. Megan had been promoted to head of the English department, and Aiden was excelling in school. Vanessa was gradually repaying her debt while saving money towards her dream of opening her own salon. Her reputation as a beautician was growing, and her regular clientele was increasing. Engrossed in his fishing hobby, Mother Betty was still soft on Vanessa, but her relationship with Megan was also gradually improving. Family bonds had deepened, and everyone had learned the importance of respecting each other. For Megan, however, the most important lesson was to trust her own judgment. She no longer allowed herself to be swayed by family expectations or opinions and could make the best decisions for herself and her son. "I'll pick you up after school," Vanessa told Aiden. "The salon finishes early today. I want to walk home with Auntie." Aiden answered with a smile. The former tension had disappeared, and now he truly trusted Vanessa. Meanwhile, Marcus Johnson's fate had changed dramatically. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for fraud and is currently serving his sentence in a state penitentiary. His assets were frozen and allocated for victim compensation. Part of Vanessa's debt was also returned, but she was determined to repay the rest through her own efforts. In the car on the way to school, Aiden looked out the window and asked, "Mom, is Grandma still watching us?" Megan smiled. "Of course, Grandma wanted us to be happy. That's why she left us this house." Grandma was wise, Aiden said with a serious expression. Yes, she believed that even if life has difficulties sometimes, the right thing will prevail in the end. Arriving at school, Aiden waved enthusiastically to his friends and ran towards the building. Megan watched her son from the car with a deep sense of satisfaction. When she returned home, Vanessa was drinking coffee in the kitchen. She smiled and said, "Sis, I'd like to change the wallpaper in my room. Is that okay?" "Of course, this is your home too," Megan replied. Tears shone in Vanessa's eyes. "Thank you so much." "Without you." Megan took her sister's hand. "We're family. We overcome difficulties and become stronger." In the bright sunlight streaming through the window, the two sisters smiled at each other. The house Elizabeth had left them had now truly become their home, a place filled with love and forgiveness, beyond past wounds and failures.